In December of 2019, the Todt family resided near Disney World in Celebration, Florida, the happiest place on earth. However, the following true story was anything but happy. 42-year-old Anthony Todt was being taken in by the FBI for a warrant regarding healthcare fraud. When the police entered Anthony Todt's home, they never suspected they would find 4 decomposed bodies on the second floor. Todt's whole family was stabbed and strangled to death, including the dog. His motive? According to Todt, he was convinced the apocalypse was coming and would later confess to the stabbings of his wife and 3 young children, only to recount his confession and blame his wife during trial. As we dive into this bizarre story with the craziest twists, we will see what Todt's true motive was. But before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe. Consistent with most psychopaths, Anthony is no exception and had a traumatic childhood. At just 4 years old, Todt experienced a traumatic event that was truly bizarre. July 1980, Anthony Todt's father, Robert Todt, faced arrest and charges for orchestrating a plot to have his wife, Loretta, shot by a former student, aiming to clear the path for his relationship with his mistress. Young Anthony witnessed the targeted attack on his mother. The hired assailant, following strict orders, spared Anthony from harm. Miraculously, Loretta survived a bullet to the head and went on to remarry. During his college years, Anthony Todt dated his wife, Megan, a fellow student who later became a physical therapist and yoga instructor. Their relationship blossomed and they later married, and together, they co-owned a physical therapy clinic. After the birth of their children, Megan transitioned into the role of a stay-at-home mother, while Anthony managed their clinic. Like a picture-perfect family, Anthony and Megan were involved in their community and encouraged their children to explore hobbies. Anthony volunteered as a youth soccer coach and worked with disabled children. One of their favorite pastimes was to visit Disney World and go camping near the parks. However, their seemingly idyllic life took a downturn in 2017 when Megan contracted Lyme disease after a tick bite. Subsequently, she battled bouts of depression, becoming increasingly withdrawn and isolated. Having lived in Connecticut for several years, the Todt family relocated to Celebration, Florida. While Anthony continued his work at the clinic in Connecticut and visited the family weekly, the Todts became more detached from society and barely ever left the house. By 2019, Anthony faced health challenges, having gained a significant amount of weight and received a diabetes diagnosis. In April 2019, a troubling revelation emerged as it was discovered that Anthony had been billing patients for care they never received. An ensuing investigation by the FBI exposed his financial mismanagement. Anthony diverted excess funds from the business to cover the family's home expenses in Celebration and trips to Disney World. Anthony had accumulated over $100,000 in debt, facing legal action from firms in New York City for non-payment. It is believed that Megan did not know about the healthcare fraud or financial issues. The walls were closing in on Anthony. He was facing financial ruin. He was under an investigation that would land him in prison, and telling his wife would confirm the reality of it all. He just snapped. January of 2020, the investigators had gathered all the evidence they needed and were ready to take Anthony in on charges. They located Anthony's condo and received a spare key from the landlord.
Everything's all right, man. Just stay calm.
The children here?
I can't remember if they went to sleep over last night.
We asked him where Megan and the children were. He said Megan was upstairs sleeping, and he also called for her. We were getting no answer.
What's your wife's name?
Megan.
Megan?
Megan.
All right, come on down, bud.
We made our way upstairs to check on the children and check on Megan. The master bedroom door was open.
Got a locked door.
Megan?
Upon entry, Officer O'Neill described the overwhelming stench coming from upstairs. Anthony lied and told officers that his wife was sleeping upstairs and pretended that he didn't know where the children were. He even calls for Megan, knowing the officers are about to find her decomposed remains. What they found was a scene from a horror film. 13-year-old Alec and 11-year-old Tyler were in the bedroom decomposing on the beds. Their bodies had been there so long that they were as black as leather. Megan was found dead on another bed in the same bedroom. 3-year-old Zoe could not be located at first, but they later realized Zoe was placed on her mother and had decomposed so quickly she was hard to see. Even the family dog was found deceased upstairs. Anthony had been living there with their bodies for 3 weeks. Appearing disoriented and mentally unstable, Anthony claims he had taken too many Benadryl pills and is arrested and brought to a hospital. During the initial interview, Anthony is oddly unemotional. He easily tells detectives a very detailed story on what happened and why. Anthony claims that his wife was chronically ill due to her Lyme disease and started to explore other Middle Eastern spiritual beliefs. He says that she became convinced that the world was going to have an apocalyptic end. He claimed that it was her idea that they all be in the spiritual plane together, even going as far as confirming with his young children that they would want to die with them. Any sane person would be able to distinguish that this was wrong. Anthony tells detectives that he came up with a 3-step plan with his wife. They would use Benadryl and cough medicine to make the children sleep. However, Anthony goes on to describe each homicide with a straight face in gruesome detail. It is clear that the children wanted to live and fought until the end. 4-year-old Zoe was the first to go. He tells detectives that he covered Zoe's mouth and nose so she could not breathe.
She rolled and started squiggling, and I put my hand over her mouth and then put a pillow over top of her. She started to fade away, and I just held that until there was no motion left.
Then he moves on to kill Alec in his bedroom by suffocating him.
He started kicking, was trying to get up, and I reached around with my hand and held his nose in his mouth.
When it came to 11-year-old Tyler, Anthony was afraid that he would try to escape at this point, so he stabbed him and let him bleed out. Not even the dog was spared. He held the dog's nose and mouth shut until it slowly suffocated. Anthony, still claiming that this was all his wife's idea, then goes into detail on how he helped kill his wife. He stated that she wanted to just end it and stabbed herself in her liver, but that she was not bleeding out fast enough. He tells detectives that Meg asked him to suffocate her with a pillow, but that he told her to take more Benadryl first, so she would not fight him. It was confirmed that she died of asphyxiation. Now the time came for Anthony to take his own life, yet he stated he could not do it.
And the razor blade zip tie around the neck, was trying to figure out how to go through and fall on the knife in the right direction. In all honesty, I chickened out and cowered it out with a knife.
Anthony was arrested for all 4 homicides, including a count of animal abuse. He was cooperative in the beginning, but that quickly changed soon after his confession. In a conversation he had with his sister from jail, he tells her a completely different story. He claimed that he did not remember anything from Christmas to the first week he was in jail. He says he doesn't remember what he told investigators and that he wasn't even at the house at the time of the murders. He states that he left to get a Mickey necklace for Zoe and fell asleep by accident because he was high at the time. Then the next day, he found them all at the condo. He recounts his confession, claiming that he was out of his mind and mentally ill. He puts all of the blame on his wife. During his trial, Anthony's whole defense relied on a charade that he was never at the house, and he was so out of his mind on Benadryl that his confession just never happened simply because he does not remember saying it. There was one major flaw in that reasoning. Why did he leave the deceased bodies of his beloved family to decompose for an additional 2 weeks without reporting the murders? If his story was consistent with innocence, he would have reported their deaths to the authorities immediately. Following the verdict, Circuit Judge Keith A. Karsten handed down 4 consecutive life sentences in prison without the possibility of parole, calling Todt a destroyer of worlds, and noting that not one of those lives taken was less valuable than the other. Anthony Todt knew the walls were closing in on him. He was going to be arrested for his crimes and crippled by his mounting debt. Rather than dealing with his issues, he chose the selfish route and committed the most horrendous act. Our hearts go out to the Todt's family. The children's lives were taken too soon by the man they trusted most. Are you convinced that Anthony Todt is guilty? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. For more stories like this one, like and subscribe. As always, thanks for watching.